We're talking about graphing rational functions in different forms. And the first thing that we want to take a look at is we want to try to find our x-intercepts. And so the way that we find the x-intercept is we take whatever is in the numerator and we set it equal to 0. So in this case, we have 3x squared is equal to 0. And we divide both sides by 3. So we still get x squared is equal to 0. And then we can take the square root. And we get x is still equal to 0. So we have our x-intercept at 0, 0. So we know that that will be a point on our graph. The next thing that we want to look at is we want to try to find any vertical asymptotes, or where the denominator is equal to 0. So here, we want to calculate our vertical asymptote, whatever the denominator is. So we have x squared minus 1 equals 0. So we want to solve that. So we add 1 to both sides. And we get x squared is equal to 1. And then we can take the square root. And then we get x is equal to plus or minus 1. So then we have two vertical asymptotes. We have 1. So x is equal to plus or minus 1. And then we can graph those on our graph here. So we have 5, -5, -5, and 5. We have one of our asymptotes at -5 here, or -1. And the other one over here. So we have our asymptotes drawn. Our vertical asymptotes are going to affect our domain. So right now, we know that we don't have anything defined at -1 or at x equals -1 or x equals 1. So we can actually write out our domain. We're going to start at -infinity, and we're going to go all the way till we hit -1. And then that will be union. And then we're going to start at -1, and we're going to go all the way till 1. And then union 1 to infinity, and then that will be our domain. The next thing that we want to look at is we want to look and see about our horizontal asymptotes. So our horizontal asymptotes we calculate by paying attention to the degree of the numerator and the degree of the denominator. So in this case, we have our numerator has a degree of x squared, and our denominator also has a degree of x squared. So they have the same degree. So if they have the same degree, then we take the coefficients and we make a fraction with them. So I should include the coefficients with this one. So here we said m was equal to 2 and n was also equal to 2. So m is equal to n. So in that case, we put 3 over 1, and that ends up being our horizontal asymptote. So we have a horizontal asymptote at y is equal to 3, and so we can graph that one as well. Last thing that we have to do is we have to pick out some points that we can graph. And we need, when we have vertical asymptotes, we have to pick points on each side of that so that we can get a good understanding of what is happening. So we already have the point 0, 0. Another point that we can pick is we can pick 1/2. So we substitute that in, and we get 1/2 squared is 1/4, so that's 4/3 in the numerator. And then we get, so that's 4/3 in the numerator. And then in the denominator, we have, again, 1/2 squared is 1/4. So then we have -3/4. And then if we divide that, we get -1. And if we have -1/2, that will also get us to -1. So that will be this little section between here. So -1/2, -1, 1/2, -1. And so we have a graph that kind of looks like this, comes up and comes down, and it doesn't cross either one of those asymptotes there. Then we can pick 2. Now we're over here on this side of the asymptote. 2 squared is 4, times 3 is 12. 2 squared is 4 minus 3. So then we get 2, 4. And then -2, 4 as well. So 2, 4 is right here. And -2, 4 is right here. And we can try 3. And if we substitute that in, 3 squared is 9, times 3 is 27. And then 9 minus 1 is 8, so we get 27/8. Which, so if we go over to 3, that is a little bit over 3, but not quite 4. Not quite half either, so it'll be right there and right there. And then we can sketch that as well. So that will go through and be drawn up there. We don't have to get a lot of points, because we will be able to, once we have our asymptotes, that will be key, and then a couple points we'll be able to do a good job of graphing once we get used to it. So here's the graph, and we have our asymptotes at -1 and x equals 1, and then we have a horizontal at y is equal to 3, and then we can see our graphs that we